Okay, and we're back. I have another one for you today that I think is super awesome. It's a book that I don't know how there's still copies of this available because I think it's pretty fantastic. Hopefully after this video, there'll be fewer copies of it available. Okay, so where do we start? Okay, so this is a work done by a guy named L Casteel, or I guess he goes by L Casteel. This book is called American Interiors, and it was published by Dewi Lewis. Yeah, Dewi Lewis. So I'm kind of wondering if I should tell you the backstory of this book before showing it to you. I don't know. Let's just get into it. Let's get into it. It's one of the few books that I own that's like this landscape orientation. For some reason, I just don't own that many. As we get to the opening title page, it's very yellow and kind of grungy and dingy looking. And then there's some text here that, talks about veterans and being homeless, a lot of returning veterans being homeless and having addiction issues and PTSD. And there's a lot of information there about veterans. And then we get into this picture of a steering wheel. And the inside of a car. And there's a Bible in this one and a flag and a gun. So what we're seeing here, I think this is mold. So Matt had a job for a season of life where he was parking cars for people at the VA hospital. And as he had this very short window of time in which he had to park the cars at this VA hospital, and he had a little camera that he would keep with him, and between the time of picking the car up from the person and parking it, he would make as many pictures as humanly possible. You're going to see a lot of Bibles and weapons in these pictures. Lots of Bibles and weapons. There definitely is, probably could have some conversations about invasion of privacy. And, yeah. But these windows into the lives of veterans that are receiving medical care through the insides of their cars is a fascinating perspective. If you would have told me that I was going to see a bunch of pictures of the insides of cars, I probably would be less enthused or interested in the book. But after seeing just a few of the photos, I was like, what is this? Like, the lips. There's just so many, like, strange revelatory details in these spaces that I think, when we're talking about the realities of war, and I'm not a veteran, and I have not served in the military. I've just been an observer from afar. I think the narratives of the lives of veterans and the impact of war on people has been, kind of narrow. As for, we have these very flat stories, either very much exalting the sacrifice of veterans or kind of the post-Vietnam, like veterans not being cared for or treated well because of what they've done, or, even now in the United States, there's constantly talks of certain political parties cutting benefits for veterans that have served. And I think works like this they give me a certain strange insight into subcultures that I don't have any understanding of, and in a very strange way. And they definitely, there's this weird, grim kind of humor in a book like this, to where there are times I'm like, oh, this is hilarious. And other times I'm like, why is there a machete in the back of this person's car? Or, it goes in these waves of being like funny and sobering, back and forth. And I don't know how to feel. Like, after seeing a book like this, I honestly don't know how to feel. I feel gross for sure. I feel like I'm in a place where I'm not supposed to be. It does feel very voyeuristic. But also, like, why is there such commonality in all of these different, these are all different cars of all these different people. Why is there such overlap with, like, the God and guns and, cigarettes and beer, and I don't know. This is, I think, one of the images that was like used to promote the book. And why are there just guns, like, just laying in the seat, like, just laying out? Another complete sidebar is that, I teach an undergraduate program, and I have a lot of students that, the reality of, like, working full time as a photographer, especially if you want to do any sort of, like, high-end editorial work, or, whatever. I don't know what the ideal would even be anymore. If you want to be a documentary photographer, if you want to, show work in gallery, just, pick your poison. Most of them have to work at a coffee shop for a while or wait tables as they're building their portfolio. And something I love about this work is that instead of Matt looking at his less than illustrious job that he had to work, it's because he had to eat and pay his bills, and, he had to survive. He channeled that experience into art. He channeled that experience into making something that is extremely captivating. And, that's something that I think should be revelatory to a lot of us, is that sometimes there's really interesting things staring you right in the face. You just can't see it because you're too close to it. Like, you can't see it because it's just right there. You become desensitized to it. You think something more interesting is much further away. And if you just had more time freedom or more money or whatever, that you could do it. And I'm talking to myself as well. I fall into this trap, like, teaching full time and doing some editorial jobs here and there, and then having a family and trying to be a present, participant in my family. They're taking months to go to a project it's not really something that I can do right now in life. Or let me rephrase that. I would have to sacrifice and trade a lot of things to do that. And while my kids are small, especially, I'm not willing to sacrifice that time to hopefully grow them into to good humans. So, I hear this from a lot of my friends that work full time and that, can't just gallivant around and make pictures, that it's tough. If you are an artist, I use that word very loosely, because apparently it is triggering to people. There's something in you that wants to make. You want to make stuff, and you have to find ways to do that, for your own sanity. But, sometimes it's right in front of you. Sometimes the best way to make something is to just look at what's right in front of you first. Maybe there isn't anything overtly fascinating or interesting there, but looking at this stuff, I can see how he could have written this experience off and being like, I'm just trying to make money. Like, I wish I had time to go make pictures. And instead, he made pictures where he was with what he had in the time that he had. There's a afterword by one of my graduate school teachers, Jörg Colberg. It's a good read. And then there's more text back here. But yeah, This book, again, was published by Dewi Lewis. I know Matt spent a lot of time putting this together. We actually had some overlap in graduate school. So I got to see kind of right before this was evolving into the final project, which was kind of cool. But there's several artists that I think are doing some really fascinating things about, especially Iraq and Afghanistan and American occupation in those places and spaces. And I've already shown one of those books already in a previous video called 300 Meters. And there's another one by that artist, Ben Brody, that photographer, that he actually served, so he has a very specific perspective. But a person like Matt isn't a veteran, and he didn't serve, and so he has a differing perspective. But still, like, I think there's a lot of meat on the bone there to where we should, again, start approaching these topics of, what are the ripple effects of war on citizens? And, yes, let's talk about PTSD, but let's keep, I think there's larger things that we can unpack about nationalism and a lot of different things that I think works like this open up that conversation in a way that is not something that, is the typical thing that we're going to read in the New York Times or Time Magazine or whatever the publication might be. It's a much darker, but I think opening up some other possible questions that we might have too with something like this. So anyway, you can still buy this book. I looked online today, and there's still copies of it floating around, and they're super affordable. So I'll find a link or two, hopefully that is not Amazon, that you can buy this book. It's called American Interiors by not Matt Casteel. It's L Casteel. I guess that's his artist name, formerly known as Matt Casteel. But check it out. Cool, wild, weird, uncomfortable book, but I would highly recommend it.